Hi everyone, we're here at the Riverside Theatre at Parramatta for an exclusive interview with Premier Gladys Berejiklian about all things Western Sydney. Premier, thanks so much for joining us.
Great to be here.
It's wonderful you could come out to Parramatta and spare some time with us. You're very busy. I believe you've just been to an opening of something quite exciting with Parramatta Public School.
Yeah, we are celebrating Education Week this week, and it was great to be able to launch the entire Education Week proceedings across the whole state here in Parramatta. And Parramatta is where all the action is at the moment. Yep. We've been investing furiously in infrastructure and services, but it's also wonderful to see the next generation of people coming through, the eager, enthusiastic students who are going to bring life to Western Sydney into the future. And I'm thrilled to have had that experience this morning. I'm a regular visitor to the region, and just to see it move forward in the way it has in the last few years in particular is really inspiring.
Yeah, for sure. And what excites you most about Western Sydney? I mean, it certainly is it's a political powerhouse, but an economic powerhouse as well.
I think what really excites me most of all about Western Sydney is the future, it's the potential. I mean, in a few years' time, when we're standing here in Parramatta Riverside Theatre, we'll be looking west for the best jobs, not east. And that's what excites me. The new Western Sydney Airport precinct, what's happening here in Parramatta, you're already seeing global brands move their headquarters right here to Western Sydney. But what I really love to see, and which reminded me this morning, is that every student, every child, no matter where they live, should have the opportunity to be their best. And I think that aspiration is really alive and well here in Western Sydney.
Is that because of the population, do you think, or just the nature of our culture out here?
Oh, I think it's both. And I think we have here a wonderful tradition. We've got Indigenous culture, colonial history, but also the migrant culture, and all three blend and work together so well, and Parramatta is a symbol of all three. Yeah. And it is now the geographic centre of Sydney, so it's not even West, it's actually not proper for me to say it's Western Sydney, it's actually the centre of Sydney here. Yes. And the future is all about Western Sydney, and whether you look at the investment in schools, in hospitals, I mean the Westmead Medical Precinct is going to be a world-leading, not just provider of health services, but research and medical research precinct. And we've had interest from all around Australia and the region, like globally, in that precinct, because the best doctors, the best researchers are going to want to, already they're saying we want to study there, we want to research there, and that is phenomenal. And
can you give us an example of any of that overseas or international interest? Because investment in Western Sydney is a priority for the government, I understand.
Absolutely. It's really interesting. As Premier, I've had to lead a number of trade delegations to countries in the region. And it's astounded me in a positive way that some of them have proactively talked about Westmead specifically. Wow. To talk about how they want to invest in. We know the future is about technology, but we could be leaders, when I say we, New South Wales could be global leaders in medtech and that type of industry, and to have Westmead leading the charge is, I think, really exciting for the future. But also the opportunities the new airport at Badgerys Creek will bring. We've had a lot of interest from space companies, defence companies, robotics, and those industries will be the industries of the future. But what is really important here is Western Sydney represents all the trades that we'll need forever, but also the jobs of the future. And as a government, as the Premier, my obsession is making sure we're creating these jobs, whether it's the traditional jobs, because of the construction boom. We need more sparkies, we need more carpenters, we need more bricklayers, but we also need more people who are interested in engineering and robotics and that type of thing. So no matter what your passion, there is a huge future for you here in Western Sydney.
Fantastic. And with the airport, what's the relationship between yourselves and the federal government look like in terms of making sure that is everything that we all expect it to be?
Well, the exciting thing about that project is that you have the federal, state and local governments working together so closely. We've got 8-9 different councils, plus the federal government working together, because we know we can't waste a single opportunity in red tape. We can't be disorganised, quite the opposite. This is literally a one-in-generation opportunity. That's why we signed what's called the City Deal between all three layers of government, and that's allowing us to move forward together. This is about collaboration, and it's not just government. It's community organisations, the business community, our universities, our TAFEs, everybody coming together to really map out what the future will be. And it's not often you get what we call a greenfield site, the opportunity to start from scratch, build a beautiful new parkland city where people are going to want to live, but also work and raise a family, and that's really exciting.
Very much so, very much so. And In terms of if you had to prioritise your focus on the region, Western Sydney, what would you say would be the top 5 priorities in terms of the government's perspective on?
I think the most important thing is to ensure the jobs of the future.
Yep.
And to provide those opportunities so people don't have to travel far into the future. Literally on their doorstep, they will have the job of their dreams. And that takes a lot of work to do, but that means behind that aspiration you have the infrastructure you need to build, the roads, the rail, to make people be able to travel conveniently. Behind that lies the investment you need to attract so that you've got people investing in the region and creating the jobs. You also need to make sure you've got the schools and hospitals, because when people think about where they want to live, they want to have great access to local schools, great access to global best practice healthcare. So all those things, when you talk about jobs as the priority, it often means you have 3 or 4 big things behind the scenes helping to deliver that.
Fantastic. I wanted to ask you about specific cities in Western Sydney. So we all know it's made up of a number of cities in different regions. If I can name a city, and you could give us your perspective on that?
Sure.
So if I started with, say, Parramatta, obviously.
Parramatta is the geographic centre of Sydney. It's not even Western Sydney. I define Western Sydney as west of Parramatta, and it is our second CBD in New South Wales. And the economic boom here is really spurring on New South Wales, and I'm excited by what the future holds.
Penrith?
Penrith is a city of the future. Penrith is growing, Penrith's thriving, and my job is to really improve the transport links between Parramatta and Penrith. We're investing in the rail network heavily. We know a lot of people use public transport to travel, but in the future, people living in Penrith won't have to travel as far to get to their best job. So they won't have to worry about going to the Sydney CBD. They'll be able to come to Parramatta or else the new airport precinct.
Fantastic. Blacktown?
Blacktown is outstanding. This morning we saw in a video that Blacktown Girls High School entered and made the finals of the Global Robotics Championship.
Wow. Big news.
Yeah, Blacktown for me is such an aspirational place. It doesn't matter where your family's from or what your background. The students there feel they can do anything, and that's exactly the feeling I want to bottle and provide everywhere, because when you have that hope of achieving anything, it really means you're productive, you're happy, you're contributing to the community, and I don't think there's anything more important than
Contagious,
that.
right?
Absolutely. It's inspiring.
Yep. Liverpool?
Liverpool, again, is a city of opportunity. In fact, the last time I went to visit Liverpool, I met someone who owns a hotel there, and he'd convinced overseas tourists that Liverpool was the place to go.
Oh, wow.
And this is really about the ingenuity and innovation that's happening in Liverpool. He convinced his tourists to stay in Liverpool because it had great access to the Blue Mountains, but also to the Opera House. Yep. And so that just demonstrates that the sky is the limit. Yes. And even in Liverpool, I shouldn't say even, but even in a place which traditionally is a bit further out, it's not so further out anymore. The connectivity has meant it is a destination place, and the mix of culture there is really exciting.
And finally, Hills.
The Hills are probably the fastest growing part of Greater Sydney, and I can't wait next year when the metro line from the northwest comes to the CBD and beyond. And the fluidity, people being able to move around between the northwest and other parts of Sydney is going to be just amazing, and I can't wait for the metro to start. The Northwest Rail Line was spoken about for decades, and now it's going to come online next year, and I'm thrilled by that.
It's real. And you've got Parramatta Light Rail too. So.
Exactly, and we're starting serious work on that later this year, and the future is bright, it's exciting, there's a lot to happen, but I do want to thank everybody for their patience, because as fast as we're moving, we've got to bring the community with us, and we know that sometimes when you have construction in your backyard, it's not the easiest thing to live with, so we're trying to make that journey as productive as possible for everybody.
Fantastic, thank you, Premier. That was Premier Gladys Berejiklian talking exclusively to Western Sydney Business Access. Find out more, you can go to our website wsba.com.au. Thank you for watching.